Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman with the 160 something, I don't remember, Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Zoom call. Glad to have you all with us. We are podcasting, broadcasting, webcasting, flycasting, whatever you want to call it, at 2 p.m. Pacific time, and 5 p.m. Eastern time. We got a full boat as we always do, tons of time stuff to talk about. In the second hour today, we're going to be, well, we're already joined by the great Dr. Nancy Naparko in the second hour, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern time and 3 p.m. Pacific. We're going to talk about national health care, single payer. Nancy's going to give us a presentation, which we've been waiting for quite a while. And then we're going to be joined by the great Jerry ASHTON, who is doing a truly a remarkable, we've had him with us before, an amazing campaign to retire medical debt, where his organization buys up medical debt at a small percentage of its original whatever and pays it off. And he's going to tell us that we have two states now, New Jersey and Connecticut, that are racing to be the first to pay off all the medical debt in their states, which is truly amazing and really would be a tremendous benefit to everybody in the country and certainly in those states. In the first hour, we did originally have Keith Ellison scheduled for the second time, and for the second time he's canceled, which is fine. We got a ton of stuff to talk about. We're going to start off with Taylor Swift and the Super Bowl. I wouldn't be doing this except that it has become extremely political thanks to Donald Trump. I mean, what kind of idiot attacks the most popular pop performer in the country, if not the world? But he has managed to do it, and it could actually decide the election. So I want to talk about that. I got some sports fans, including TATANKA, who, like me, watched the whole Super Bowl. We're also going to talk about two amazing indictments that have come down in Ohio. This is a very big deal. The former president of the biggest utility company in Ohio, First Energy, and the former chairperson of the Ohio Public Utilities Commission have been indicted, federally indicted. This is a really big deal in a $60 million bribery case. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to go to Wendy Lederman in Florida to talk about Ron DeSantis and the developing fascist state down there, which is truly amazing. I do want to acknowledge that it is Black History Month. I once saw Dick Gregory point out that for Black History Month, they chose February, the shortest month. But here we are. There's a lot to deal with on that reality. We've been joined by Joel Siegel, by the way. Great to see you, Joel. And we really have a full boat. We're also going to talk some more about renewable energy and the massive attack on renewables, which is truly astounding. You would have thought that solar energy would be like mom and apple pie, beyond the ability or any reason to attack it, but massive assault on renewable energy going on, which really needs to be discussed, as does the homeless situation. But let's get right to it. The Super Bowl, I believe. Oh, I do want to quickly give MYLA RESON a minute. We do have a job announcement. Pacifica, the Pacifica Network, the radio network, which I think should become a media network, is holding has issued a job description for conducting an election that's coming up. We will have new elections at Pacifica, and there is a job available to run these elections. And Mama, do you want to tell us about it and post the link in the chat for the job description?
Oh, thank you, Harvey. And one other thing, we're coming up on the 10th anniversary of the failure of the dump for plutonium contaminated nuclear weapons waste in southern New Mexico, to isolate the plutonium from the accessible environment. The dump failed. 9,985 years ahead of schedule, the waste isolation pilot plant. And later in the show, I'd like to talk to you about that as well. But right now, I want to talk about the opening for a national election supervisor for the Pacifica Foundation. Pacifica will be conducting elections this year for the 5 sister Pacifica stations, KPFA in Berkeley, KPFK, where you and I are, Harvey, in Los Angeles, KPFK in Los Angeles, KPFT in Houston, WPFW in Washington, D.C., and WBAI in New York City will all be conducting elections to replace half of their local station boards. So they will be electing 9 delegates for the local station board, and Pacifica has an opening for somebody with experience conducting elections to oversee these delegate elections for all 5 stations. So it's a big job, and they hope to name someone by the end of March. And if you go to pacifica.org, the job should be posted there, the job description. And if you want more information about and think that you might be able to apply for the job, which is a complicated job, which may in fact be divided into separate parts. But for now, we just want to let people know that we have a time crunch here, and we're hoping to find somebody who is willing to oversee these elections for for this year, 2024. So if you go to pacifica.org, I will put the link in the chat. I'm going to find it, and thank you. We're really hoping to find someone who can oversee all of these kind of complicated elections. Can't hear you.
Muted, Harvey.
Muted, Harvey.
I believe the job pays around 40 grand. So this is not an insubstantial for just a few months' work. So it's a serious job offer. Ray, if you know someone or TATANKA with experience running elections, this is something to look into. It is a serious job. Okay. And it's a big deal. These elections at Pacifica really matter. I mean, I'm pretty pleased to announce that Pacifica has been in dire straits for 3 years now after an election was denied, and it just completely wrecked much of the network. And we're just finally getting back up on our feet. We're hoping that this year we can turn Pacifica around and make it into a really major voice for the progressive movement in this country, and these elections are critical to it. So take a look at the description. I'm going to send a copy to Ray Lutz, who has tremendous expertise. But if you know anybody who wants a job running an election, we are taking up, or the network is the executive director, Stephanie Wells, will take your application. MYLA?
Yeah, Harvey, I just looked at pacifica.org. I'm sorry, I just got home, and it looks like the job hasn't been posted. We were promised that it would be posted today.
All right.
So keep looking at this, and if you you can contact me or Harvey, and we'll get the information to you. Right now, I'm posting a link to the jobs page on pacifica.org, and unfortunately, it has yet to be posted, but we're expecting it up today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Muted again, Harvey.
Somebody at the door here. Always happens. I want to welcome Michael ZWEIG. Michael, are you the Michael ZWEIG that went to the University of Michigan way back when?
I am the very one, and you are the very Harvey Wasserman. Hello there.
I am indeed. So Michael ZWEIG and I have not seen each other for a good 50 years.
But here we are, and I see
And
Bill
Michael was
is here
a
too.
mentor to a lot of us at the University of Michigan in the 60s on radical economics. And Michael, it's great, really amazing to see you. I'm glad. We also had Carl Oglesby turn up on our show here, so it's
That's
really
very
great.
good. That's very good. I see Joel Siegel is on the call too, an old friend that's done some things. And if you want to check out Democracy Now! This morning, I was on with Reverend Barber for the last segment
Oh,
of Democracy Now! Today. So
and what did you talk about?
we talked about what the Poor People's Campaign is doing and what my new book is, Class, Race, and Gender, Challenging the Injuries and Divisions of Capitalism. That's just out from PM Press. And so Amy had me on with a Reverend Barber, who wrote the foreword to the book, to talk about what's going on with the Poor People's Campaign and with the whole idea of fusion politics. And it's what the Progressive Caucus does, what PDA has been doing for years and years.
So I'll tell you what, Michael, this is really cool. Michael was a huge force at the U of M back in the day. And if you'll get Reverend Barber and join Joel, we'll have you on next week and we'll give you a full slot to talk about this. You want to do that?
That's great. I can check with Reverend Barber and see if he's available. It would be at this time.
Yes. Yeah.
And how should I characterize what this is exactly, so that he can know what he's getting into?
We have a great group of people here. Right now we have 32. This is webcast. It's rebroadcast. Livecast. It's rebroadcast on the Progressive Radio Network on Thursday nights, and it's archived at the GREEP site. So it goes around, and we really have a good session with you. You're extremely charismatic and very coherent. You made a lot of big difference back in the day. So have us on next week. Join us next week. Let me know. My email is solartopia@gmail, solartopia@gmail.com. And Michael, it's really great to see you, and come back with Joel. Maybe we'll get Carl Oglesby to join you and talk about the early days of SDS.
That would be a hoot. What's Joel's current email? I was just going to put it in the chat. I don't want to bother everybody here.
Joel's on there.
Yes,
email me and I'll get it to you. Okay.
Very good. And
okay,
I'll see what I can do. I'm not sure I'm available, but we'll figure something out. I'll be in touch.
Well, it doesn't have to be next week. Just find a time.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a very kind offer. Thank you very much. And hello,
sure,
everybody. Let's go get them.
All right. Well, speaking of going to get them, we have Ray McClendon on. Ray is one of the truly great organizers of grassroots campaigning. And we also have Camilla Reese with us. So we want to get to the one thing that we know everybody wants to talk about, which is yesterday's Super Bowl. And the reason we really want to talk about it is that Donald Trump has incredibly stupidly continued to attack Taylor Swift. I mean, if there's any one person that a sane politician would not want to attack in this country right now, it's Taylor Swift. And she apparently has like 100 million followers on her whatever. But the bottom line is that her team won, and it was a great game. Ray McClendon, I got to ask you the most important question I can ask you today, which is, did you watch the game, and what did you think?
Yeah, I watched the game and was delighted by the outcome, especially knowing that it irked so many of the MAGA crowd. As we talked about on one of our Thursday calls, it was amazing how the MAGAs could contort themselves into being for a team from one of the most liberal, progressive bastions in all of America. They were going to support Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris.
Yeah, really. I mean, talk about being between the rock and a hard place.
Exactly.
I got to tell you, I warmed up for the game by watching a session, which you all might. I found it absolutely fascinating. Taylor Swift, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, she draws huge crowds. I mean, I don't get. She seems like nice. I don't get her music, But she had a stadium filled, and she brought on Mick Jagger. And this was like, holy cow, man. This is it was I just recommend Google Mick Jagger with singing with Taylor Swift. And you tell me what you thought of it. I just found it amazing. I did also, I want to talk to TATANKA. I just saw a statistic that said that a quarter, 25% of the people who watch the Super Bowl watch it for the commercials. I know my son-in-law does. I mean, he doesn't care anything about football, but every year he goes to this place and they all sit in 4 hours, for God's sakes. And I have to tell you, I had a personal crisis during this Super Bowl because I set myself up exactly the way I wanted. I went to 24-hour fitness and I got on the exercise bike. And I biked all the way through the first half. And then I wasn't interested in the halftime show with Usher. So I went and I worked out, lifted weights for like 40 minutes, came back. I missed a piece of the second half. And I'm on the exercise bike. And I timed it perfectly to finish my workout when the game ended. And it went into Super Bowl. And I mean, into overtime. And I was dying on the bike, man. But, I got through it. TATANKA BRICCA, what did you think of the game?
Well, first of all, I wanted to say about the ads. It was the 1984 Super Bowl that kicked off all the ad mania because
Right.
that's when Apple came on with the Mac with the Big Brother ad, just classic. Put it on the map. Well, and I'll just a comment about the whole brouhaha with Mr. Orange Hair and Taylor Swift. I mean, what really triggered him was the fact that Taylor Swift stands in front of a crowd of people and urges them to vote. She doesn't even say who to vote for. It's a completely nonpartisan urging people to vote. And of course, that is a perfect statement about what would trigger the GOP, the minority extremist MAGA cult. If we vote, they lose. So today, I mean, I didn't have time to look at it, but he called Taylor Swift traitorous for urging people to vote.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's truly amazing. There was one commercial. I don't know how many of you watched this thing. That I know, Ray, you probably saw this. There was a commercial about Jesus, or two of them. A commercial is about Jesus. And I couldn't make heads or tails of what they were trying to say. The first commercial had him wash, and these commercials, by the way, are $7 million. It's $7 million
30 seconds.
For 30 seconds. And this commercial, and I've gone back and watched a lot of them, and this one I couldn't figure out what they were trying to do. There was a commercial showing Jesus washing people's feet. And it made no sense to me. Can anybody figure this out? And there was one instance where Jesus was washing, or somebody was washing people's feet in front of a woman's health clinic. And I thought this must be a progressive message that Jesus loves everybody, even people who've gone in for an abortion. But apparently the commercial was funded by an extreme right-wing group. And didn't make any sense. Anybody figure that one out? No, I couldn't do it. Okay. A lot of you, I will apparently didn't watch. I'm going to say a couple more things very quickly about football. First of all, this is the one of the only remaining football team that has an indigenous-based nickname, which is the Chiefs. And they've taken a lot of flack for it. They do the tomahawk chop, or tomahawk chop, but so far they haven't removed it. And I also want to say that Trump, although he's still attacking Taylor Swift, did suck up to Travis Kelce. So for those of you who don't know, Travis Kelce is a major football. He's a really great football player, and will be in the Hall of Fame. He's from Cleveland, and he's very personable and clearly extremely intelligent. And I saw him hosting Saturday Night Live, and he was really good. So afterwards, Trump has said that he wanted to congratulate Travis Kelce, even though Travis probably hates me, according to Donald Trump. So I don't know where that's going, but it'll be interesting to follow. Wendy, oh, the other thing before Wendy, it's very important to understand about the NFL that this is the biggest sports deal in the country now, and they signed a deal based on a lawsuit on concussions. And as all of you know, I'm sure that football players just get their heads banged, and the concussions and the CTE, the disease that comes from too many concussions, is rampant among football players. And there's a very important movie, actually a very good movie, starring Will Smith called Concussion, where he portrays a Nigerian doctor who came to the United States in Pittsburgh, and he took up with a guy who had been a great football player and was now living in his car. This guy, I don't remember his name, and he isolated the reality of concussion. And the NFL signed a multi-million dollar, might have been multi-billion dollar deal to compensate the players, and they've reneged on it. I mean, these shysters, these billionaires with all this money from the Super Bowl, and I mean, they made a fortune in the Super Bowl. God knows how much they made, and they've all got tons of money, and they're refusing to pay these guys. It's just sick, beyond sick. And there's also a racial aspect. Wendy, is that what you wanted to talk about the racial aspect?
Thank you. I had two quick little points about the Super Bowl, but I was gonna say something about it when you're finished. Thank you. So sorry. Thank you. Sorry about like 30 seconds of background noise per second. So I just heard, I think it was earlier today or yesterday, there's a historian that I follow on Instagram called Ernest Krim. He goes by Mr. Krim, and he talks about like the real Black history and a lot of just true African stories that aren't told. And he was talking about how when the first liability suits came out against the concussions, in the paperwork, it actually stated that the Black players would get less money in compensation because they basically are losing less cognitive function. So basically just saying that, I mean, you get the point of what that says, and it's just really messed up, and it's like still in there. So I'm going to reach out to him and see if I can get that guy to come on, or if not, I'll look more into it and report more in the future. But it's like just the deep-seated racism. I mean, these kids are puppets, and then you're talking about the money, like thinking about how much money comes in from the military. So to me, it's like an extension of like high school recruitment. The 2 points, if I may, really quickly, about the Super Bowl I wanted to make. One is about Taylor Swift, and the irony that Ray kind of mentioned about the flip-flop of like which side am I on? So Taylor Swift has been getting so much flack because of her 2 private jets that she's known for taking trips that are like a half an hour away, and she's using like in like a day fossil fuels that 500 people will use an entire year. And so the people shaming her are like now having to inadvertently admit that fossil fuels are a problem, but it did drive her to sell one of her jets. But like all these people, like they're like the truck diesel guzzling people are like, oh, but she's burning all these fossil fuels. So you admit they're bad. So let's continue this conversation on a more enlightened level after the game. Right. And the one other point that I wanted to make really quickly, that I thought of. So I heard that Israel actually funded some ads, and I haven't seen them, so I don't know what they are. I don't know if they're the same ones that Harvey was referring to or not. But I did hear that there was a lot of money pumped in from Israel that is to basically somehow promote what they're doing. And I did want to say that during the Super Bowl, while everyone was watching it, Rafah was bombarded. But Rafah is the southernmost city where now 1.6 million people are sheltering. It's normally 300,000, I think. people. And so you have everybody was forced. This was the only safe zone left.
Okay.
So all the people in Gaza, and 109 people were killed in like 1 hour while we were watching this. So I just wanted to keep some perspective on that as well. So thank you.
Okay.
I know that probably wasn't expected. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that, Wendy. TATANKA, go ahead. TATANKA, you're muted. Hold on. Okay, there you go.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that of all the professional sports, it was the NFL that actually organized as a union. I believe it was 54, 2 years before, or the NBA, I guess, was the first, and then the NFL and came on later. And I believe it was the Packers and the Browns. I think they were the first ones to really start getting together as union organizing. So everybody knows that the professional sports players make a lot of money. But when I grew up, you know, with the 49ers and the Rams, I mean, they had to take jobs all year round. It wasn't organized at all. It was no way to make money in professional football. So it was the union that straightened that out. And I think you could probably say that the NBA that racially organized first is the most progressive, then the NFL, then baseball, you know. So it's just worth noting that I think Donald Trump has problems with anybody that's organized, right? Because people get to they get to speak their mind and have agency in what they do.
Well, it's important that the NFL players union is very powerful, and they have been really an important force in organized labor. And this concussion fight is going to be a big deal. And I'm firmly of the belief that O.J. Simpson's behavior was linked to, he started running the ball probably in elementary school, certainly in junior high. I mean, this guy was hit in the head probably 10,000 times. So, it's important we recognize this. Is there anyone else who wants to jump in? There was a very funny sketch on SNL, all these guys standing around talking about wondering what they're going to do with their lives now that the football season is over. So any of you sports fans want to vent very quickly, then we're going to go to these indictments in Ohio, and then Ron DeSantis, second hour, we're going to deal with healthcare. Justin, did you want to say something? Justin LeBlanc, go ahead. Are you muted?
Yeah. So the other part of this saga with Trump is that recently he came out saying that Bud Light, the same group that his stands have been telling to boycott, Donald Trump said instead, we'll give him a second chance. Why? Because his son-in-law is actually big in money with Bud Light and has been for a long time. So, yeah, even Donald Trump can't ignore the money. That's the bottom line for him and his promotional aspects.
Right.
But,
of course.
the other part about all of this, as far as like NFL sports, and you mentioned the ad for the foot washing. So I looked that up, and that is he gets us is the group.
Right.
And they are actually the media arm for the No Labels Party, which is a bunch of right-wing Republicans, such as Hobby Lobby guy, that are offset by nice Democrats such as Joe Manchin.
Well, I couldn't figure out the ad. I urge people, watch the ad. They're all available now online somewhere. And if you can, Jesus foot washing, Super Bowl, I couldn't figure it out.
The idea behind all of that is to, don't have any judgment for anybody, including politicians. We're all just doing the best job we can. And really, that's just a stalking horse or a Trojan horse for, hey, let's continue to have guys like Joe Manchin and Mitch McConnell continue to turn our country over to oligarchs. No judgment about Medicare for all or any of the other things that people might actually want.
Speaking of things people want, we have Jerry Ashton. He's only available for about 25 minutes. So it'd be great if we could get to him pretty soon, Sluggo.
Well, I think we can have him afterwards. He's going to be on PDA for a while, and then we can have him in the second hour.
No, we can't. He's only going to be here for like 25 minutes.
You just put it in the chat. Yeah.
All right. So listen, I guess Ray, is there any other football fans want to jump in and comment on the Super Bowl? Forever hold your peace, because we're not going to talk football probably for another till next year. TATANKA, go ahead.
Yeah, one more thing. I haven't heard anybody talk about it, but Patrick Mahomes is one of the first who did community organizing to get people voting in his local community. And of course, he won't go after Patrick Mahomes, but he'll go after a powerful woman.
Well, again, if Taylor Swift comes out, I don't care if she endorses Biden or not, really, but if she urges people to vote, that could change the election. And I have seen Travis Kelce on TV. If you're interested, just Google Travis Kelce on SNL. He's incredibly charming and clearly very smart. So this is a big deal. And I'm just glad the Chiefs won. And Ray, did you want to jump in? I know the Falcons suffered major humiliation in the last Super Bowl they were in, but maybe we can write all that. But you're focusing on as much as anyone on, and Camilla, on election turnout. So hopefully this is going to play into our agenda. Zach, you want to say anything about that before we go to Jerry Ashton and medical care? Ray, you with us there? I see your picture. Let's see if we're unmuted.
Hedy's got her hand up.
Hedy, did you want to say something? HEDY TRIPP?
Unmute, yes. Oh, just a statement that, Super Bowl is made of super Black athletes, and the Super Bowl is owned by mainly non-Black owners. And I think that's something that we have to consider in terms of the racism within the sports history.
Absolutely. The NBA is the same way, although the NBA is changing faster than the NFL. But remember that Patrick Mahomes, whose father is Black, was paid $450 million by the Chiefs. So maybe he can buy the team at some point. That would be really great. A good point there. Okay, we're bouncing around with our schedule today, so we will discuss in the second hour Ron DeSantis and the indictments in Ohio. Jerry Ashton has rescheduled for us to talk about medical debt, and then we'll go from him to Nancy Naparko to talk about national health care. So, and I think Joel Siegel is with us. We do have 46 people with us. Jerry, you want to jump in here and give us the wrap on reducing medical debt?
Sure will. First of all, let me thank you for allowing me to be in this illustrious group again. I had a great time. Had a great time the last time I was here. I think I told you then we'd abolished $9 billion worth of medical debt. My charity called RIP Medical Debt. We'd abolished $9 billion worth of medical debt, and your response was, "What? What?" So well, hopefully I'll get more whats. I loved your whats. So maybe I'm going to tell you that we're closer to 11 billion right now. That's for over 7 million.
Tell us exactly how it works, what you do. Again, It's been a few months. And you have two states now that are on the brink of abolishing all their medical debt. That's astounding.
Well, there are so many wonderful things happening in our world, considering our world deals with the bleak reality that any one of us watching and listening today are one illness and one accident away from irreparable harm financially, thanks to our broken medical system, which is not a medical system. So to give you the history on this, I'm a former debt collector, and 10 years ago, I walked into Occupy Wall Street because I live in New York. I'm a former Navy journalist, and I had a camera, and I had a pad, a paper, and a pen. I thought I would document what was going on. So I went down to Occupy Wall Street, and what they had to say resonated. Now, one of these in particular, and I'm a debt collector, one of these was the absolutely horror show that any American can go bankrupt just because they got sick or hurt. Well, that resonated with me. And so when they discovered that they had a bill collector in their midst, they decided to put me to work. And I and my partner, Craig Antico, were recruited to be the back room, the back office for the Rolling Jubilee. The Rolling Jubilee was put on by Occupy Wall Street as a way of bringing attention to the fact that your medical debt can be bought and sold like ham hocks on the open market. Well, so I proceeded to help them buy the debt. We would see that they would see that the debt was forgiven. They were a 501c4. And then Craig and I would use our collection software. And instead of sending out collection letters, we'd simply send out forgiveness letters. So when Occupy began to dissipate, they came up to us one day and said that they were going to work on something, going to go in a different direction. You've heard that before. But it was a good direction. They were going to go after student debt. And Craig and I looked at each other and we said, we can't let this happen. So we formed RIP Medical Debt in January 2014. And from that point forward, two former debt collectors turned into debt forgivers. And we know a lot about what's going on. And I guess that's why Harvey's invited me. So, Harvey, questions?
Well, did Jesus wash your feet while you were? No, this is quite amazing. My understanding of what you do, and we want to keep having you back because this is a $11 billion in medical debt retired. How many people that have you saved from bankruptcy?
Well, I can't tell you that we've saved people from bankruptcy, which, by the way, I suggest is a very intelligent way out if you're underwater with debt that you can't pay. Stop being noble about carrying that burden and do what smart people do. Get out from under it because you shouldn't have that debt to begin with. So if you're talking about medical debt, my take on all this over the last 10 years of working with physician groups, working with hospitals, working with healthcare providers, you have to realize that the system is set up the way that it is because it's profitable. I don't have to tell this group that. And it's broken to good effect, and trying to change that system is not that easy. I'll give you a couple riffs on that in a few minutes. But what you were referring to, Harvey, is that we've gotten to the point right so far, we're so well known and so effective at what we do that we have hospitals come to us to see whether or not we could buy their debt for pennies on the dollar and forgive it to get it off their backs and off their books and, do a nice community philanthropic thing.
Well, and this is put in the chat, you have the state of Connecticut and the state of New Jersey vying to work with you to retire all their medical debt. Can you tell us about that and how it would work? I mean, this is a huge deal.
It is a big deal. A BFD. Well, it was sort of ignited by New York City. New York City has been in conversation with us. They discovered, I mean, we're in their neighborhood, but they discovered that right here in New York City, there was a tiny organization that grew up to be a big one whose basic function was to take medical debt off of people's backs. And as a charity, that means people give me money. I go to the debt market. I buy their debt. When I get that debt in my possession, I slit his throat. Some people call that forgiveness, but I get rid of it. Now, New York City announced to everybody maybe 2 weeks ago that they were working with RIP Medical Debt at the rate of $18 million a year for the next 3 years to abolish the debt for every citizen in New York City who qualified on the basis of being a charitable need. Now that means they will have abolished $2 billion for, let's see, 500,000 people.
Jesus. That's so someone in the chat here, Ira Denver, says you're paying about a half cent on the dollar. Is that about right?
Yes, pretty much.
So what you do is you take outstanding medical debt that's uncollectible or uncollected, and you offer the owner of that debt a half cent on the dollar. Is that right?
Close. It used to be that we could buy the debt for half a cent on the dollar because it was older debt, therefore uncollectible. Now what we're doing is we're going to the hospitals. We say, look, let us take your debt portfolio. Let us run it through our analytics. And we will locate those people who are 4 times the poverty level or below. We will locate those people who are paying 5% or more out of pocket for healthcare. And we will buy that debt from you. Some of that debt could be a month old, 2 months, 6 months, a year, which is in the collections industry, the debt buyers and the bill collectors that chase after that debt. This is prime mistake. But by going directly to the hospital, we negotiate a price that would be considered industry specific. In other words, if it's an earlier debt, we have to pay more. Sometimes we might pay 3, 4, 5 cents on the dollar. But we still manage somehow with the monies that we have to be able to keep it in that roughly every dollar is $100, $10,000 equals $1 million.
It's astounding. Will you put your links in the chat? Is there anybody else out there doing this? Are you the only operation that's really doing this?
Funny you should ask. When I started RIP Medical Debt, along the way, I discovered that veterans were showing up in our portfolios. We buy portfolios of $1 million at a time. And they would show up, and I'm saying to myself, and I'm a former veteran as well, I'm saying to myself, hi there. I'm saying to myself, why is a veteran having to have medical debt forgiven? And what I discovered is that veterans, through the VA, either through the VA or they owe the VA as much as $6 billion. Shall I repeat that? Yes.
The VA
Thank you
holds $6 billion on debt on veterans?
This is where you say, what?
That's insane. So
yes,
veterans are being held to pay the VA for their medical care?
Well, they can't exactly hold it to hold you either have the money or you don't. So what happens is if a debt is accrued that is owed to the VA by a veteran, they're in debt and they'll be collected on, just like a hospital would collect on you and me.
I had no idea that the VA was billing veterans for health care. That makes no sense at all.
Well,
Nancy Naparko is going to talk about this in a while, but that makes the VA bills veterans for their health care? Are you kidding me?
No. Understand how the VA works. It's discretionary. What most people, and I wasn't even aware of it, is that your medical debt will be covered as a veteran, providing you jump through this hoop, this hoop, this hoop, and this hoop. It has to be, in all cases, it has to be military service connected. Now, let me tell you 2 incidents incidents in which the VA ignored debt that was caused by military service. Number one, through Agent Orange. They fought veterans tooth and nail who had Agent Orange who were dying, but they say, there's no correlation, there's no proof, blah, 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 until finally there was such an uproar and people proved the case that the VA started covering that. Then along comes the patron saint of veterans. And that patron saint is Jon Stewart. By the way, he's going to be on tonight. I'm going to catch his show. Jon Stewart is the one who came forth to help veterans fight the VA about another little problem, called burn pits. If you guys aren't familiar with that, when you're serving overseas and you're in a war zone, everything that you have that if you're leaving the area or you might be living, it goes into a burn pit. All the old files, all the chemicals, all the munitions go into a burn pit, and that smoke that comes out of the burn pit infects the lungs of the persons, not only who are attending the burn pit, but the entire area. And these people had been arguing with the VA about the fact that their respiratory diseases, their cancers were caused when they were on duty, in service. And if it wasn't for Jon Stewart and his way to bring it to the attention of Congress, there never would have been a change in policy on that.
Well, let me point out that the Agent Orange thing, which was an abomination, we finally got through on that because of a wonderful guy, a great hero named Robert Alvarez. And Bob Alvarez was a chief aide to Senator John Glenn. And it was only because of Senator John Glenn and the hearings on Agent Orange that we were finally able to get recognition of the fact that our guys in Vietnam were poisoned by Agent Orange, and they and their children had horrible medical problems that the government would not, tooth and nail would not acknowledge. There's another one you've missed, Jerry, which goes way back when, which is atomic veterans. After World War II, the U.S. military conducted, as we all know, hundreds of tests in the atmosphere on land, and especially in the South Pacific and Nevada, of nuclear bombs. And in many cases, I mean, the pinnacle of insanity, the military surrounded nuclear bomb tests in Nevada with living guys, guys in the military, and then marched them right through ground zero to see if they'd fall over dead. Hard for me to not use the F word here. And tens of thousands of veterans were poisoned by radiation from the atomic tests, which the government would absolutely not acknowledge. And they wouldn't even acknowledge people who were at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. A lot of American military went into Hiroshima and Nagasaki after the bombing, got sick from the radiation, and the military would not acknowledge it. So here we have another instance that you might want to put in the repertoire there.
Well, I live in a 55 plus community, and just down the street from me is an atomic veteran, and he's still fighting that case. So
outrageous.
It is outrageous. Now, let me give you a couple things, and I'll circle back.
Well, let me very quickly. I did write a book about this with Bob Alvarez and Norman Solomon called "Killing Our Own," and it's free on the internet. And I will put the link in the name in the chat. It's easy to find, and you may want to look at our chapters on atomic veterans because it's a horrendous story, completely infuriating. We're talking with Jerry ASHTON, by the way. He's going to have to go in a few minutes, but Jerry has done the incredible job of founding this organization that has now retired $11 billion in medical debt. And if you get New Jersey and Connecticut to sign on, as apparently you've done in New York City, that's a really big deal.
Well, let me circle back to your question. Is there anybody else who's doing what RIP Medical Debt does? And the answer now is yes, me. I retired to the board of RIP Medical Debt to start the process of building a new charity, but this charity is veteran-centered. Because when I found out in my experience with RIP that all the debt that I wanted to get was in the VA, I couldn't buy it. So I decided I would retire from working with, I retired to the board, still active, but I decided to retire and start a charity. I put it in the chat. It's called endveterandebt.org. And also for information purposes, I put in another one where I want you guys to go and sign. It's called endveteranmedicaldebt.com. And my job now is to hunt down the VA, hunt down every form of veteran debt that's created, and not just medical debt, but every debt. So I'm kind of a busy guy.
It's unbelievable. It's amazing stuff, Jerry. We're really grateful to have you on. I hope everybody, this is something we can all do. So if I send you $100, how much debt can you retire?
If you send RIP medical debt $100, they will be able to charge 100 times that. So what is that? $1,000, right?
No.
You give me $1,000.
100 times 100 is 10,000, isn't it?
Is that correct?
Yeah. How many zeros are we talking about? 100 times 100 is 4 zeros.
That's what happens.
2 zeros, 10,000, 2 zeros.
Yeah, it's 10 grand.
10 grand.
If I send you $100, you can retire $10,000 in medical debt. Is that right?
That's correct. If you give me $10,000, I can retire $1 million worth of medical debt.
Wow. That's amazing. Really amazing.
Now,
Paul Newman, are you raising your hand? Paul Newman, are you? No. Okay. Justin LeBlanc, go ahead, Justin.
I'd like Dr. Nancy to weigh in first, and then I'll give mine.
Okay. Oh, Nancy, you had your hand up. Go ahead, please. Because Jerry's going to have to leave, but Nancy is a medical doctor who's going to give us a presentation on Medicare for All. Go ahead, Nancy.
You've just educated me. No, I don't really. I wanted you to comment on my slide on this, but I've always thought of the Veteran Administration as a socialist medical system, and I'm disappointed to hear it's not perfect.
No, I really want. In fact, let me put my email in here. I want you guys to get in touch with me to discuss what can be done, and.
All right.
And there are so many ways we can slaughter this.
I see it. Jerry at endveterandebt.org.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Justin, you have a question?
So Attorney General Keith Ellison filed a lawsuit that's kind of in parallel to this sort of thing. And it was originally done in the style against the cigarette companies for their abuses of health and lying about it. But his is a RICO type lawsuit against the oil companies and their lies about climate change and also the health effects such as asthma. And of course, that contributes to this medical debt. But I wanted to say that the problem has become so big that the big credit reporting agencies have come to realize that even when people can't pay the hospitals or won't pay the hospitals, they'll still keep paying their other bills. So we're actually responsible consumers, and they're even talking about stopping the credit hits for medical debt collection. Have you heard of anything like this?
They didn't volunteer this. We were behind the drive to get these people to pay attention. That credit reports, by the way, when we abolish somebody's medical debt, we take off the credit mark too. That gives them the freedom to be able to use that money for better purposes and rent that house, buy that car, get those tires on credit without being abused.
Wow. That is really great stuff. Dave Saltman, are you with us, Dave? I wanted to jump in and tell Jerry and Nancy about the story of your sister here. Yeah, there you are. Dave Saltman Tell us what happened to your sister. It's mind-boggling.
Well, this just shows you how. Can you hear me? There.
Yeah.
This just shows you how you never know. So a few days ago, my sister lives in San Francisco. And you guys all remember, I'm sure, that a few days ago there were these big, massive rainstorms, 90-mile-an-hour winds blowing in San Francisco. So she's about 6 blocks from her house on 18th and Castro, and her husband goes into some cafe to use the bathroom, and she's just standing out there on the street waiting for him to come out, and suddenly she is felled by a giant tree that is blown over and smashed her in the back, breaking her hip, breaking her two vertebrae, and she was completely, taken by surprise. And lucky she wasn't killed. We did some research on this, and most people who have trees fall on them are killed. And she went to the ER and so on. She survived. She's in a lot of pain and all this. I'm going to check on her. She was a union member all her life. My sister was one of the first women in the trades. She was a carpenter, and then I have to brag about her a little bit. Her last job before she retired was she was in charge of the renovation of the Fairmont Hotel on Nave Hill. My beautiful little sister with her earrings and 500 hard hats working for her. She was telling them all what to do, and she knew the job perfectly. And then she built the Exploratorium in the Bay and then retired. So she's doing great. And
the Fairmont was my honeymoon location. So
oh my God. Well, she knows the place inside and out. She's great to travel through San Francisco. She says, like, oh yeah, I earthquake proofed that building, and oh, that's a Frank Lloyd Wright house. I renovated that. It's pretty great. Anyway, I'm going to check on her insurance. I think she's covered by union. Is this the kind of thing the Carpenters Union would do? Got to go.
Oh, okay. All right, Jerry, we're going to resume this. You come back. You're one of our most impressive presenters. We've had 47 people listening to you. You've been live streamed. So we'll have you back.
Well, okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, guys.
Jerry. Okay, so we're going to continue. It's now 3 o'clock Pacific time, 6 o'clock Eastern time. Dave, the question becomes, does she have health insurance, and will it cover it? I mean, when my parents in their 70s, they were healthy all their life until the last year. They must have run up $1 million in medical bills in their last year of life. Right. And my mother's mantra was, thank God for Medicare. If it hadn't been for Medicare, I could never have owned a house or put my kids through school. And that would have never happened because we'd have had to assume their medical debt.
Yeah, Medicare has its issues, but it's better than nothing, that's for sure. And I think my sister's covered by the Carpenters Union, but now that you're asking me, I don't really know about Medicare in her case. I'll find out.
Okay, well, MYLA has a hand, and then we're going to go to Dr. Nancy Naparko
David,
to talk. Go ahead, MYLA.
David, oh my God.
I know.
What a story.
It's so random. The randomness.
I'm so glad she survived, but
me too.
It was the tree. I mean, the city of San Francisco should be responsible for the medical.
We're thinking that we have a picture of the tree. Apparently, there's a video. Some traffic video or something caught the thing, and she's thinking about a lawsuit. I don't know.
But if it was on city property, then the city
it was on a sidewalk, and apparently, what you can see from the picture is the roots were completely rotted out. So that tree should not have been standing there.
So the liability has to be with the city of San Francisco.
I'm glad to hear that, because I think
not only should they be paying for her medical debt, but they should also be paying for her pain and suffering.
Her pain is excruciating.
Seriously, she should be taken care of for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Based on this. And the city is definitely liable. I'm not a lawyer.
Right.
But I play one on TV and on group calls. And on city property, Roots rotted out. It's got to be the city's liability.
I think you're right. You know, we tend to like to avoid litigation, but this seems like a pretty clear case. Yeah.
So pretty clear. Thank you, David. That's a horrible story, and I hope you'll keep us posted. We'll have to talk to
you. Send a prayer to her. She's a great person. Her name is Nina, and she deserves everybody's goodwill.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, David. Keep with us, please. Someone who also deserves our goodwill is Dr. Nancy Naparko. She's a close friend, and also, you know, our Super Bowl was a few weeks ago when the University of Michigan won the national championship, and we've been waiting for 50 years for that one. But Nancy is also a truly great healer, and she's been asking, and now we can finally offer her the opportunity to give us a presentation on universal health care and single payer. So Nancy, the floor is yours. We have 45 people with us, and take it away. Now remember, we're also on radio, so we'll utilize your slides, but make sure that our radio audience can understand what you're talking about.
Okay, whoops.
You're good.
Okay, this is me. I am recently responsible for trying to organize a LA area Physicians for National Health program, and that's where this came from. I've got a lot of, I'm trying to, there, now I can see my own screen. Corporate, and this is going to be very simple for some people who are really into it, but I think it emphasizes why this is important. I love to say markets are great for vegetables, but not healthcare. And that's the direction we've been going to for 30 years. Oops. The U.S. is the only developed nation that does not provide comprehensive health care for all. 28 million are uninsured in 2022. Many don't have care because of high deductibles, limited providers, and a bunch of people die because of not having insurance. And this is actually directed toward doctors. My position is that I could tell you plenty of my own as well as my patients' horrible stories about medical debt, but doctors have heard it all. There are other more objective reasons for single payer. In 2008, most doctors thought they were against single payer, and now the majority are actually for. And I think the rest of them don't know. In fact, in the United States, we have a higher infant mortality than all the other developed nations. And even wealthy white Americans have a higher infant mortality than these other countries. So it's not just the poor and the people of color. And this really blows me away. Among 100,000 live births, babies born, 33 American ladies die, compared to all these other nations. Out of 100,000, only 11 to 2 will die. And in fact, life expectancy is lower in the United States than all these other countries. It's fallen to 77 compared to 80s for everybody else. 2/3 of bankruptcy files cite medical bills or illness-related work loss as a cause. So about a quarter have too many medical bills, an eighth or so lose work, but a good third have bills and lose work and go bankrupt. Most of these people who go bankrupt actually had American private insurance at the onset of their illness, 60%, which blows me away. And here's the 2% VA. And only a quarter were uninsured. And I think this is the crux, that Medicare, socialized medicine, has an overhead of about 2% compared to all the insurances, which range from 15% to 40% of your healthcare dollar.
Mind-boggling. That's amazing.
Why is it not going? There we go. And this is my favorite slide of all. This is 1970 over here. This is 2023. You all wait for doctors, complain how long it takes to get an appointment. Well, we do have more doctors, but you have to go through this 4,000% increase of administrators to get to that doctor. And that's where our money is going. And here's a comparison. In Canada, University of Toronto, they have a 1,200 bed hospital for 7 billing clerks. That means every billing clerk takes care of about 200 of the beds. Duke Medical Center, and this is like all the big medical centers in America, there's less than 1,000 beds, and they have 1,600 billing clerks. That's about 2 billing clerks for every bed in the hospital. Doctors spend twice as much time on electronic billing records as with patients. You all complain that you don't talk to your doctor enough. Well, you know what? They're doing their electronic health record.
Jesus.
And this personally bugs me a great deal as well. So this is a study done. EPIC is the electronic medical record that most hospitals use, not all of them. But these are the number of times a doctor strikes a key documenting a patient visit. In the United States, look at that. That's how much time your doctor spends typing the visit that you had with them.
So for those who can't see the slide, the American doctors spend 10 times as much typing as doctors in other countries. Is that right?
Yes. Oh, sorry, I forgot about the radio. Can we afford universal health care? It's cheaper. 95% of households will pay less in taxes than they currently pay in premiums, co-pays, and prescriptions, and they will have comprehensive first dollar coverage. Medicare is single payer health care. It started with LBJ signing it, and he gave President Truman all the credit for it, frankly. And in fact, Americans are not as healthy as other countries, but when Medicare kicks in at 65, our rank as mortality approaches as high a good number as all the other industrial countries. And I don't know about you, but I've recently gone through the transition to Medicare, and it's A, B, C, D, E. A and B, everybody can get. C is the corporate. That's where Medicare Advantage comes in, which we're going to talk about now. Part D, you have to buy separate, and G, Medigap fills that 20%. But if you pay the insurance company for Medicare Advantage, it's not really Medicare. Medicare pays straight to the insurance company, and supposedly they give you everything, but everything needs to be pre-authorized. So we do have some socialized medicine in this country. Up until what I just heard from Jerry, I always thought Veterans Administration was entirely socialized. But think about it. When President Trump went into the hospital for his COVID, it was all paid for. That was socialized medicine taking care of him. Our Congress members get Medi-Cal, get it all paid for. Medicare, Medicaid are socialized medicine. Where Washington, D.C. pays directly to the doctor or the healthcare provider. When you get commercial private insurance, you have them in the middle taking their cut. And HMOs, PPOs were introduced in the 1990s. Medicare Advantage now functions in that role. They take it all. They decide how much to pay the care providers. And the ACO REACH, which is now the hot topic in Washington with healthcare, they do the same. The difference is they're not even medical insurers. They're simply private investors. So the only way to stop ongoing private corporatization of American healthcare is to set up a unified, single-payer, nonprofit, publicly funded healthcare insurance system. Why should we change? We spend more than twice as much on healthcare as the rest of the country. We have worse healthcare outcomes, and we don't cover everyone. Third-party entities, the ACO REACH, the insurance companies, bring nothing to the table, but they take about a third of every healthcare dollar for profit and bureaucratic waste. We now spend enough to cover everyone and add mental health, dental, and vision. So current legislation with which to be aware, I can be further educated on this. This is a work in progress, but there's a letter written by Representative Jayapal and Senator Warren to end ACO REACH, which is the latest effort of privatization of healthcare, where they're going to be able to take us out of straight Medicare and put us into an insurance company without our authorization. In California, what's hot off the plate is AB 2200 CalCare, which just got presented to our legislature last week. It's called Guaranteed Healthcare for All, pushed by the Nurses Association, but pretty much I think most single payer advocates are on board with it. But it's just come out and it's being scrutinized. SB 770 got signed a couple months ago. Unified healthcare financing. It's not a single payer bill, but supposedly it's supposed to be a roadmap for waivers from the national healthcare restrictions. So this is our choice. Healthcare, single payer, straightforward, or all these hoops to jump through. Any questions?
Well, my understanding is that there was some very good legislation put forward in California that Newsom prevented from happening. Is that correct?
Well, that would have been the 1400, which was rewritten to be the current 2200. So we're going to see if it goes through.
And then what will the 2200 do for California?
It's a complete single payer system, like in Canada, where they started with one province that got the single payer, and it spread because it was so popular. And
so it's basically Medicare for all? Is that fair? Now, doesn't Hawaii have that? I thought Hawaii had Medicare for all, but maybe I'm wrong.
Hawaii has a pretty comprehensive system funded because they have a lot of tourism. But no, they don't have quite a single payer system in Hawaii, but it is better than the rest of the country has.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mike. Mike, did you want to say anything else, and then we'll go to Ruth Strauss?
I'll defer to Dr. Ruth first. Always let the doctors speak first.
Okay, Dr. Ruth, please let's get you unmuted, and we'll go to Carla Sand and Paul Newman. Beautiful presentation, Nancy. Thank you so much. And Nancy is a wonderful caregiver, so really great to have her with us.
Thank you.
I'm trying to mute Ruth Strauss. I'm not having any success here.
Yeah, doctor's not responding. Sorry. Mike, you want to go? Oh, no.
We'll try. Okay, Mike, let's go with you. You were unmuted. There we go. Wait. And then we'll go to Carla Sand.
I'm unmuted, but you can go ahead with Mike if you want.
No,
I'm
go
unmuted.
ahead, Doc. Go ahead, Doctor.
Go ahead, Doc. Let's hear it.
Anyway, Nancy, that was a stupendous presentation. Just marvelous. So kudos. I just wanted to add a few 2 cents in here. Number one, I'm sure people know this, but the CEOs of these health behemoths are paid millions. I can't even say how many zeros are in the salary of the head of United Healthcare, but it's jaw-dropping. And somebody put in the chat, which was absolutely true, and Ralph Nader refers to Medicare Advantage as Medicare Disadvantage. I myself had a fall, and I injured my right hand. I had a trigger finger, and I called my health plan at 5 in the morning because I was like, oh my God, if this is a hand injury and I go into the ER too late, maybe they'll tell me, okay, you're going to be like this for the rest of your life. 54 hours. That's 2.5 days before they answered me for an emergency nurse call, 30-minute turnaround. The other thing I wanted to say, and Nancy, I don't know whether you know this fact or not, but I can remember 40 years ago sitting in University Hospital when some person from medical records came in and said to positive PPD, which is a TB test, positive PPD is not a diagnosis, okay? This woman is telling us that we're going to have to look through 50 pounds of chart to see what somebody
Dr. Ruth, let's get back to the topic, please.
Okay, I just wanted to say one other thing. In talking about doctors not having enough time for patients, there are now 77,000 coding numbers for what we have to put in a bill. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Dr. Ruth, and always good to hear from you. Mike, then Carla Sand and Paul Newman and Camilla.
Absolutely. I just want to underline some of the great points that you made, Dr. Nancy. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Ruth, for underlining just how difficult the current system is for practicing doctors. It's a nightmare. And every step along the way, there are all these inefficiencies to help insurance companies make a lot of money for doing absolutely nothing but standing in between people and the healthcare that they need. They literally have a business model where they hope you give up trying to get healthcare and that you go home and quietly die, as former Congressperson Ellen Grayson said. That's the Republican model. And that's the private insurance company model. It's an illegitimate enterprise. It's designed to bilk people, waste doctors' time, and to create confusion and static in the system, all so they can get paid tens of millions of dollars for the CEOs of these corporations. And again, they bring nothing. They don't, wipe a runny nose. They don't give you a prescription. They don't evaluate your situation. They don't take your blood pressure. All they do is stand in the way and jack up the costs every step of the way. And just to summarize, even before COVID, when COVID put an incredible strain on our system, but even before COVID, Harvard and other studies showed that tens of thousands of Americans were dying every year because of the lack of a comprehensive healthcare plan. That's tens of thousands, and it's skyrocketed under COVID. We're not sure exactly where that's going to come down afterward, but on top of that, it would save us 40,000 lives at least, if not more, per year, as well as hundreds of billions of dollars. because right now our tax money is going not only to pay for all the public employees, municipal employees, cops, teachers, fire, everybody who works for local, state, and the federal government. All of their health care is paid for, and it's generally paid for through very expensive private insurance rather than a self-insurance plan. On top of that, we've got tax breaks for companies that are struggling to cover their employees. They're able to write that off their taxes. So that means that's money that if they were able to save that by not having to provide for healthcare for their employees, they'd be able to raise wages. They'd be able to innovate more, and they would also pay more into the system as opposed to just bailing out these gigantic insurance companies. So a single payer Medicare for all health plan would be easier for doctors, would be easier for patients. You wouldn't have to worry about what network you were in. You wouldn't have to worry about deductibles, co-payments, caps. If you go over how much you're allotted in a certain year, you wouldn't have to worry about paying fees for out of network. You wouldn't have to lose your doctor if your doctor gets dropped by a network. The doctor won't have to be arm wrestling with the insurance companies, being forced to accept lower payments in order to stay in a network. It would cut down on the confusion for the doctors and for the patients. And bottom line, it would save an incredible amount of money, and it would save lives. So
Mike, let me add, you touched on something that's really important. We're the only major country that has lousy statistics on our COVID experience because we don't have a unified system. So what was charted as COVID, how many people died, it's very controversial because we don't have the numbers because we don't have a unified system.
Right.
That's exactly
right.
They
also do a great job of not studying the environmental impacts of things like nuclear power plants.
Absolutely.
When they come around and say, well, nobody, you don't have evidence that people were killed. They don't do the studies, including at 3 Mile Island. It went in and did the study. So there you go.
In a comprehensive medical system, we would find out if there was an outbreak of influenza or COVID or something else and be able to rush the remedies to those areas before it spread across the country. We'd be able to spot cancer alleys, places where there was environmental racism, dumping of radioactive and toxic materials, usually in neighborhoods where people of color live. And Sluggo, we would be able to see with comprehensive statistics that's the skyrocketing cancer rates wherever radioactives are. And
that's one of the reasons we don't have it.
That's right. We're flying blind. We're flying blind, and our doctors are handcuffed, and our patients are confused, all in the name of greed. All in the name of greed, and we don't have to do it.
Thank you for that, Mike, and thank you, Nancy. Carla Sand, and then Paul Newman, and then Camilla Reese. Carla?
Yes, this is Carla Sand from Minnesota, and I am a supporter of both PNHP, Healthcare for All Minnesota, one-payer system, but I would hope that everybody on this call, which is 43 people, would already know what we're talking about. I mean, I've been working on this for 20, 25 years. This is not a new subject. This has been a problem for years and years. And what I really want to know is, do we get a copy? Is PNHP, are these national slides, or is this just for California? Can I get those from you, or do I call my local?
Nancy?
Sure, I'm happy to send them to you. I got them from, some of them are from the National Store of Slides, and some were from a local speaker too.
Okay,
but I'm happy to send them to you.
Okay, I'll put my email in the chat. But my other question, did I hear that our Congress people and the White House people, and I'm talking about elected and employees, do they do they not have a health insurance plan, or are they all self-insured by the Congress and by the White House?
My understanding is it's all government insurance, like
so
the
no
VA.
Premiums, nothing.
No.
Oh my
It's
God!
amazing.
We should be marching the streets on that. That's terrible. Okay, thank you.
Terrible. It is terrible. Thank you, Carla. Paul Newman and Camilla.
Yes, I just want to quickly, is it possible to screen share the list of the 7 principles of AB 2200 CalCare?
Nancy, can we get the list of the principles of CalCare?
You have the list, Paul?
Yes. I just need to screen share it.
Oh. Yeah, this is, go ahead.
There you go. You got it.
Here it comes. Okay.
So Paul's been a great, in addition to having solar panels on his rooftop, Paul has been a major activist on California healthcare. Am I right? Did Newsom screw us on this one?
No, not yet. No, not on AB. He never did on either one. The CalCare was shelved in 2022, I think. It appears that I can't share it. Darn it! I'll read it. Okay, how about that?
Yeah, please go ahead.
It's probably easier. Okay, here we go. Okay. Number 1, universal coverage. Everybody in, nobody out. Everybody, regardless of race, sex, gender, country of origin, disability status, immigration status, marital status, age, and income, gets the care they need, regardless of ability to pay. A single public program. A single payer publicly funded through progressive taxation to cover all necessary care in California, eliminating billions of bloat and waste and saving people thousands on their healthcare costs. Then the next one, fully comprehensive benefits, includes medical, dental, hearing, vision, mental health, prescription drugs, long-term care, and more. All decisions about care would be made between you and your doctor and nurses, not insurance companies. Next, freedom to choose your care provider. Under CalCare, there would be no more in-network or out-of-network. You would have the freedom to choose any doctor or hospital you like. Next, free at the point of service. No more co-pays, premiums, deductibles. You arrive at the doctor's office, show them your CalCare card, get the care you need. It's that simple. Next is transition, just transition. Funding and programs to protect and support any displaced workers in the insurance company. So that'll be provided as well. Next and last, patient care based on patient need. No more financial incentives to avoid providing necessary care, including value-based payment models or providers. Now, let me go back here. Now, if you guys, I'm going to put in a link to our website that has all the information, even the meeting with the CNA, California Nurses Association, with Ash Kalra and Carmen Compsey, one of the people that wrote the bill with the nurses and worked with Ash Kalra. So you can read the whole thing. There's links to the actual bill so you can read it. So I'm going to put the link in there. Okay, HC number 4, us.org. Yeah, I just upgraded my operating system, so things aren't working perfectly. That's why I haven't been able to share. My apologies for that.
Oh, well, it's actually better that you read it. It's great for our radio audience that you read it.
Oh, okay.
We deal with it in the future. And, it's really critical that this healthcare situation be dealt with.
Yeah, if you scroll down. Oh, okay. I was going to say, if you scroll down on that, you'll see it'll has a video of the CNA and the meeting with Ash Kalra. So yeah, there it is. It's up higher up where the girl is like floating in the air there, and then click on learn more.
Okay. If you put the link in the chat, that would be great.
I already did.
Anybody can download
it. Video. Below that is the video with the nurses and everybody and the creators.
All right. Well, let's hope we get CalCare soon.
I hope so
I do
too.
remember that Hawaii had a much better system than most of the states. So that's really important. And this is great stuff. And Paul, I know you've been active on this, so it's really good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Camilla
Nancy.
Reese.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Camilla Reese, can you join us, please? Camilla? Are we good here? I'm asking. There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Nancy. Interesting presentation, very impressive information about the growth in administrators versus physicians and the number of billing clerks, Duke versus University of Toronto, and the amount of time that doctors spend on electronic health records. Very, very interesting, and you built a great case. But I have a question, and this is really just to stimulate dialogue. What do the people who don't want this say? What are their arguments? And is there any way to incorporate their interests into your vision for what is needed here?
That is, you know, that's
wait, Nancy. There. Go ahead.
I love that question. And I've been involved with PNHP for a dozen years. And my repeated question is, why are all the physicians, by far and away, most physicians involved in this crusade, why are they pediatricians, family doctors, psychologists? I mean, non-proceduralists. Now, a proceduralist doctor are those who do surgery, take x-rays, those kinds of things, dermatologists, because those people have learned to play the system. And I don't mean that to be entirely negative. They've learned to play the cards they're dealt. The insurance companies would rather pay for a $2,000 MRI that takes 20 minutes than give me that much money for an hour work. You know, and so the doctors that are not for it, and the reason the AMA resists it is because the AMA is financed by doctors who can afford their dues, which are very, very high, actually. And those are proceduralists. So the United States has a very heavy weighting toward surgery and x-rays and MRIs that are unnecessary. Mm-hmm. You know, I once figured out that where I was working for a while, that they were paying a neurosurgeon 20 times what they were paying me and per year. And I was the one sitting for hours explaining what the surgeon did to the child's brain. And so there, yeah, test. Wendy's right. But we've brainwashed America to think that you do a body scan, MRI or CAT scan, whatever it is, and you'll know if you have any illness. That's craziness. It's all about somebody who can analyze those pictures. And that's a lot of work that no one gets paid for. So our system has moved toward paying for procedures and not education and knowledge.
Wow.
So those people who make money from procedures, they're against this.
Real quick.
I have one other thing, if you don't mind.
I just wanted to say one thing, Camilla. The AMA is moving, even with all those economic and personal incentives against a Medicare for All plan. The AMA is moving away from resistance over the years. It used to be adamantly against, and also the medical students associations are all for Medicare for All. So part of it is kind of a knee-jerk ideological reaction. A lot of doctors tend to be somewhat conservative, and they see socialism as something terrible. And some of them might have even been around when Ronald Reagan was saying if we had Medicare, we'd have communism. And he was wrong about so many things, but including that.
And in fact, the students are taking credit for pushing the AMA to a neutral position.
Absolutely. And so the trends are all favorable. And I think that the last holdouts are the doctors who have their own testing companies, and they're able to make an incredible amount of money through the tests and retests and all that. And a lot of that has to do with avoiding malpractice. And a lot of the malpractice expense would disappear if we had a Medicare for All program.
All right, Camilla.
Yeah, I have one other thing I want to say, and this is food for thought. But in your chart about the growth in administrators versus physicians, which was striking, I can't help but wonder whether part of the reason for that is this limited supply of physicians and the explosive growth in chronic illnesses that we've seen since, this late 70s. And in particular, I've been focused on the biological and health effects from electromagnetic fields. So we're working on a paper right now looking at the growth in diseases, very many diseases since 1990, mid-1990s, when the infrastructure rollout occurred. And these numbers, the growth rates are just extraordinary, whether it's, bipolar, diabetes, autism, cancers. And so I'm wondering whether part of the reason is because of environmental things, not just electromagnetic fields, but that are just we just have a sicker and sicker population because of the environment, and whether the model of care is really inadequate or adequate or inadequate to address the truth of what's really happening with people. And that therefore you need more you need more support personnel beyond just the MD.
Well, those administrators are not doing anything in terms of helping with healthcare. That's the problem. They're not helping to measure anything. They're not. These are insurance
PAs and nurse practitioners.
No, we're not talking about those.
Where I live,
hold on, Camilla.
You can barely get a doctor. Everybody.
Camilla, hold on.
Wait, Mike, let Camilla finish and then go ahead. Go ahead, Camilla.
I mean, anyway, go ahead. You go ahead. I don't.
No, those are
insurance.
Those are insurance company employees who are hired to just tell people they can't have the medication their doctor wants or the procedure that their doctor prescribed. These are not RNs or LPNs. These are not nurses of any kind. That's why California Nurses Association, National Nurses United are 100% for Medicare for all. There's maybe a misunderstanding about that.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about anybody who's providing any health care at all. These are basically bureaucrats, private company bureaucrats hired by the insurance companies to tell you that you can't get the care that you've already paid for.
Can I comment? I what Mike said is completely right. But Camilla, what you list, some of them I agree are environmental, lifestyle, but everything you mention is very different. And I will tell you, part of the reason I think we have this is that doctors are not paid to talk to patients.
Mm-hmm.
It's a numbers game. And if we used to be able to just examine patients and do just as well without CAT scans and MRIs. And the fact is that if we could talk to patients, and if I was actually paid for the time I spend with a patient, that I think some of those things go by the wayside.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Camilla, did you want to ask?
Well, I do think we have a model of care problem that's sort of the elephant in the room, where we're not even acknowledged, healthcare system doesn't even acknowledge many of the roots of imbalance that are known to lead to illness, in epidemiological studies. So they don't consider disciplines that are important to getting to the roots of illness, and it's the one size fits all system. And, what if that therapy or that approach isn't right for your particular problem? They're about 15 or 20 different root sources of imbalance that people don't, that people don't, unless you're really lucky and you go to a more broad-minded, more broadly educated physician, you may miss something. You may miss a dental connection, or you may miss an emotional connection, or you may miss, it's just not a thorough system. It doesn't, and then really you have to, people need to be educated themselves. And I think
not the old docs I knew. We were trained in medical school to pay attention the connection between cavities and encephalitis. I mean, this is what you're trained to do. But now, when everything's a protocol and a checklist in medicine, and you're only given 5 minutes, it's easier for me to order a CAT scan and see the next patient. That's what I get paid to do.
So I love what's happening with all these summits that are bringing out 20 doctors at a time to talk about a particular illness from many different angles. I think that kind of patient education, as long as the caliber is good, I think that's fantastic, because it's a way to engage the patient in the process of actually looking for the roots of the problem and restoring their health. They become the driver. And I think that that's really important. So that's encouraging in our healthcare system. I don't know what you think about all these.
Camilla, what I will say is, to say that people are not looking for the root of illnesses is, to me, so far from the truth. It's simply communication isn't as good from the medical community as it is on the internet. And I don't think there were so many unhappy people before the internet became people's number one source for medical care.
Okay, great dialogue here. Mike, did you have more to say before I go to MYLA?
Absolutely. A lot of what Camilla's saying is absolutely dead on. She's 100% correct. And Camilla, thank you for raising these points. There's been an explosion of diabetes. There's been an explosion of a bunch of other things because of our unhealthy lifestyles. And I think that we're not well equipped to prevent lifelong and life-threatening illnesses, because the insurance companies throttle doctors, force doctors to see a high number of patients in a short amount of time. It just think about the amount of time doctors have to spend navigating a labyrinth of codes, like Dr. Ruth said, how much time they waste, how much staff they have to have shuffling forms, and how much time they have to spend fighting with insurance companies. All of that time is wasted. And all of that time should be spent with patients and doing all the things that Camilla said we need to do more of. And the reason that that's happening in the United States and not in other places is because private insurance is dictating to doctors how to practice. And these are people who have not had a minute of healthcare training. I actually met somebody who was, not to put her down, she was unable to finish community college. She was hired by an insurance company, and they told her on her first day, you answer the phone, and whatever they want, you tell them no. And she had no medical training whatsoever. And the phone would ring, and somebody would say, we want this prescription to help this child, blah, blah, blah. And she was a very kind-hearted person. She would say, okay, yes. She got called into her manager's office, and they said, you don't understand your role. You're supposed to listen politely, say nothing but no. And she said, okay, I got it. So the phone would ring, and she would again say, she'd say no. And they say, but my daughter needs this. And she's been sick for months, and the doctor says she desperately needs this medication. And this friend of mine would say, yes. She got fired. So so when we talk about that skyrocketing number of administrators, those are all people who are paid to stand in between you and your healthcare, to stand and contradict your doctor, to make your doctor's life miserable and make it almost impossible for even the best doctors to practice medicine. And it's such a ridiculous system. People can't wrap their head around it. They don't understand. People say, well, how are you going to pay for it? It's going to be cheaper. And the reason it's going to be cheaper is because of all the waste in the system now. We're paying people to basically, it'd be like if you go to a grocery store and you fill up your cart and you pay for all these different things. And while you're bagging them, somebody's paid for by the grocery store to take back some of the things that you paid for and say you're not entitled to this. It's experimental, or it's not the proper usage, or we don't think that it's called for in this situation. It's with health insurance, you pay for things and you don't get it. You don't get the health care. So we're dealing with a situation now, and the main reason we don't have it is because these insurance companies spend so much money bribing elected officials, lying to people through sneaky ads, scaring people into thinking that they're going to lose health care that they already don't have, scaring seniors and hurting them into this Medicare disadvantage program that fleeces them and denies them care that they need to have. These people have boundless greed. They're driven to collect quarter over quarter profits that are obscene, that are ridiculous. That's why healthcare costs so much in the United States, and we still don't cover everyone. And I just want to wrap up by saying this: the principles of CalCare are absolutely wonderful. Those are the same principles in the legislation that Joel and Mr. Conyers drafted, Joel Siegel with John Conyers. And I saw the name Himmelstein on some of those slides. And Dr. Himmelstein was one of the people who advised Joel and helped him when he was pulling together the Medicare for All legislation that was 676. And Pramila Jayapal has taken from that, made sure that the national federal Medicare for All legislation would guarantee reproductive health, including abortion care to everybody. It would include mental, dental, medical devices, long-term care, which can be extremely expensive, and every other kind of health care that currently you have to pay extra for under regular Medicare. That's why the real name of Medicare for All is expanded and improved Medicare for All. It's everything that Medicare has, everything Medicare Advantage promises but doesn't deliver for every single human being in the United States of America. And we absolutely need to have it now.
Thank you, Mike. And clearly, thank you for your extensive work on this. I know you've been involved in the congressional side. So really, thank you very much for your presentation. MYLA, Dave Saltman, Justin, and Ruth. MYLA RESON, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, this is an amazing conversation, and I don't want to cut it short. I had hoped that we would be able to talk about the anniversary of the failure of the waste isolation pilot plant during the recorded part, but maybe we can do it next week, Harvey.
Well, we still have some time. Let's see how this goes. But go ahead.
At any rate, people have been talking about how, so many physicians, and I think that Ralph Nader has highlighted the fact that the primary investors in pharmaceutical companies are physicians, and there is a tendency to prescribe medication and not prevent disease, to treat disease after it occurs. And I know that years ago, I don't know if it's true today, but it seems like doctors aren't required to take basic courses about nutrition. Is that true, Nancy? That's something that I've been hearing for a long time, that doctors know more about treating disease than they do about preventing it and about basic nutrition, etc. I had a wonderful physician when I was growing up who warned our family against x-rays, but I have a doctor now who seems to want x-rays for everything, and I think that they might be harmful. And same thing with antibiotics. It seems like some doctors overprescribe antibiotics, and that then you build up resistance to antibiotics when you don't need them. Anyway, if you could comment on that, Nancy, I'd appreciate it.
Please.
I spend a lot of energy talking people out of CAT scans and MRIs. But our society is demanding it. And about the nutrition, I also think that among nutritionists, it's terribly controversial. I grew up with a mother who sent me to college with literally a box of different vitamins and nutrient things that she had read about in magazines. And one thing I learned in medical school is you can be a little bit deficient in this or that, and your body makes up for it remarkably. I have what I believe is the healthiest diet. I certainly been studying it since I was in high school. And no, it's not a major course because I don't think it's a hard science. I don't think anybody knows what a real good diet is. And I think it varies from our metabolism from person to person. And so it's pretty controversial. But I agree. I mean, doctors don't focus on diet because, well, one thing is no one pays me the time to spend talking to patients about it. That's not what the insurance company wants you to do. I'm sorry, Harvey.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The one thing that I have always heard that almost, if not all doctors agree on, is good for you in the long term is exercise. Have you ever heard
exercise and green vegetables? Yes. Yes.
Right.
And can you get people to do this? No. You know, people get told a lot of what they should be eating. I think a lot of doctors say those things, but people don't listen.
And water, good water, right? Hydrating is also almost universally accepted. Is that correct?
Sure, but I would say that I am very pleased that the younger generation tends to carry around their water bottles. And they're not drinking sodas or juices the way the anti-milk people trained people to do in the 70s. So it's very, they're drinking water.
Very good. Very interesting. And thank you, MYLA, for that. Hopefully we'll get to WIP. It might be next week, you're right, but we'll definitely get to it. Dave, Saltman, and Justin, and Ruth. Salty, let's see here.
So I think, I don't know if you know this, Harvey, I know you do, but for many years I covered business and finance and economics for the major media. And among other things, I did an extensive series of stories about insurance, including health and medical insurance. And there are two parts to this, my statement here. Number one is about private health insurance. And I'm not going to go through all the details, although I will if you're interested. But the bottom line on our story, the title of the story, it ran on CNN, and it made me, the insurance companies want me dead because of this, and they're not going to pay any claims on that death either. The basic gist of the story was they don't pay, and we got all kinds of insurance lawyers, judges, prosecutors, and so on. But the main thing we had was court documents from insurance inside officials talking about what they used to call the policy burning parties. Once a month, the various insurance companies would burn the insurance policies of people who had medical insurance and simply destroy them. And when the people called in, they'd be like, "Yeah, sorry, you're not covered. It's your problem." Okay. So that was they don't pay. And that was private insurance companies. And there's a whole, I mean, this is obviously a huge subject, and everybody's doing a really good job of getting a lot of the different side elements. So that's one thing. But I have to tell you that my own experience with Medicare is they don't pay either. And they should, but they don't. And I'll give you a more detailed example. My cardiologist is a brilliant guy, and he saved my life at least 3 or 4 times. over the years. And he used to take Medicare, but as I forgot, I think it was Mike was saying, he couldn't deal with the paperwork. He had to outsource the business to some, random company in India to keep track of his medical records because it was just too complicated. He's got 3 guys in his medical office and 15 guys keeping track of his records. And it was just too complicated, too expensive. So he basically stopped taking Medicare. Okay. Now, there came a time, and I knew that. And he cut me slack. Instead of charging me $450 a visit because he knew I was a Medicare patient, he only charged me $75. He was and he made up for it by doing that. But that was between him and me. So there came a time where he saved my life. He literally picked me up off the ground, threw me in an ambulance, got me to the hospital, and saved me from dropping dead on the spot. And under the rules of Medicare, if a doctor has, I forgot the exact term of art there, but if a doctor doesn't do Medicare anymore, but they do it in an emergency basis, and the patient has Medicare, the Medicare will pay. Okay, that's the law. So he told me that. He said, "Look, I know this." He said, he saved my life once I realized that I was going to live, and we started talking about the bill. He said, "Look, he said, I'm going to charge you, I forgot now, $5,600, something like that." And he said, "Well, just give it to Medicare and they should pay." Because, he gave me I had all the documentation. I had chapter and verse of the law and so on. Well, again, long story short, I had to fight Medicare for 3 years to get 1 penny of that money. And they kept telling me all the way along, "Sorry, not covered, not covered, not covered." He opted out. No good, no good, no good. And they finally said, we can take it up to the, what do they call it? The ombudsman of Medicare. And I said, what are my other options? They said, you can go to an administrative law judge. And this is now 3 years into, I'm trying to collect this bill so I can pay this guy something who's for saving my life, He deserves something for it, not just a kick in the butt, So we actually finally settled on the administrative law judge. It was a telephone case. We got on the phone with the law judge. He heard the story. After 3 minutes, he said, "You're clearly in the right." He said, "Done." He said, you're not guilty. They're guilty. Yes, they have to pay. And I said, "Okay, great." And so then he said, okay, bye. And so then I was now left with the problem of how to collect this money from Medicare. It wasn't just that there was a decision to pay. I had to go back to square one.
Hey, David, can you wrap it up a little bit? It's getting kind of in the weeds.
Bottom line is, he charged them $5,600. They ended up paying him $1,100, and Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to very quick. This is obviously we still have 38 people in this time. I'm going to tell you very quickly.
Can I make one more comment? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
In reference to what MYLA said and all, I don't want to come off wrong. I mean, we can tell, doctors tell patients non-medical healthy things to do. Getting them to listen is very difficult. I tell people every visit, you've got to eat breakfast so you don't get your migraines. How many of these teenagers start eating breakfast? Almost none. And that sort of thing. And if you tell people, I put it in the chat, that smoking weed lowers your IQ over years, how many people stop smoking weed for that reason?
The ones with a high IQ. Anyways, well, I'm going to very quickly go ahead, finish, Nancy.
So it's just that it's not that advice isn't shared and given to patients. It's simply that most people forget they were told and can't make themselves do it.
Let me very quickly share, because I feel compelled to do so, and we'll get to you, Ruth and Justin. A long time ago, I had a bike accident and cracked a rib, and I went and got x-rayed at the hospital, and they called me back, and this doctor from Harvard sits me in a room, very solemn, and says, "You've got a tumor in your lung. We have to operate." And he showed me the x-ray. And, you know, and he said, "If we don't do this, you're going to be dead in a year." And I said, "Well, how do you know it's cancer?" He said, "We don't, but it's too big to do a biopsy, because if we do a biopsy and it turns up negative, it still could be, you know, cancer in a different part." Long story short, my holistic doctor advised that I wait and see what really developed with this thing. And I spent 9 months. I dropped out of teaching. I took a sabbatical, and I did 9 months of research. And it turned out that if they had merely read the MRI, they would have known it was not cancer, because tumors, cancerous tumors, are irregular, and they have blood vessels leading into this. And the MRI report said very clearly that this thing was round, perfectly round, and had no blood vessels going into it. If they had operated on me, it would have been a 5-hour operation. I've been in the hospital for a week, and for the rest of my life on painkillers, because there's nothing more painful than a broken rib, believe me. And they would have had to break 5 of my ribs to take this thing out. The bottom line is I never had it out. It's still there. It's still perfectly round. After 9 months of investigation with 24 doctors, and I had just gotten on Medicare. So Medicare covered it. Otherwise, I couldn't have done this. If I'd have had that operation, I'd be dead.
You know, in the old days, specialists got together every week for an hour or two and went over everything. If your doctor had taken that x-ray to their rounds with a weekly meeting, the way we used to have time for, you would have had debate and probably come out with the right answer, not just one person's opinion.
After 9 months, I brought all my records to a Chinese chiropractor in Boston. And he originally told me, I told him how big it's a big tumor, a big thing. It's actually a hematoma, as it turns out. And everybody had a different opinion. And it turns out that the original doctor told me it was a tumor in my lung. It was not a tumor, and it was not in my lung. So it was in the pleura, not the lung. And this Chinese chiropractor, we went through who had originally told me it was definitely cancer because how big it was, finally concluded it was not cancer. It was a hematoma, probably from having been rear-ended in a car, and it's still there. And if I hadn't had that x-ray, I wouldn't have known. If they'd done the operation, I'd be dead. So there you go. Just my medical experience, and maybe people can learn something from that.
And to me, it just speaks that physicians are not getting wiser because they're not talking to each other. There's not conferences the way they are used to be. And I really
think how much money would this doctor have made operating on me? You know, that's also an incentive there. He made a ton of money pulling this thing out.
We give surgeons too much decision making.
Anyway, okay, we're after 4:00 already. Ruth and Justin, and then I think this was a great discussion. Thank you, Nancy. I never want to cut it off a discussion about Medicare or medicine. Thank you, Mike, for your expertise on this. Ruth and then Justin, and then we'll probably wrap up.
That's a great story, Harvey. And what I always say is if a doctor tells you that you've only got 3 months to live, that's a guarantee that you've got at least 10 to 20 years left, because we all always make bad predictions. But anyway, and for David Saltman, that sounds like Medicare Advantage. I don't know that Medicare turns things down that often, but that's okay. What I wanted to say, Nancy, and for everybody, Nancy knows this, but everybody else might not. not only does Medicare Disadvantage turn down things and, you know, put doctors through hoops to get you a procedure, and they deny procedures, they also charge Medicare. Medicare is what pays Medicare Disadvantage. And so Medicare Disadvantage is bilking Medicare for money, and the Medicare Advantage upcodes. So let's say you have a viral cold, they'll go and bill Medicare for pneumonia, and collect extra money. So it really is a scam. And Nancy, you know, I really would love it if there was a doctor committee to review Medicare Disadvantage over billing, in the meantime, till we get Medicare for All. But thank you again for a great presentation.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to apologize. Wendy, you and I, we discussed that with Steve and Mike, talking about DeSantis. We'll have to do that next week. Steve is gone, but we also have the former president for First Energy in Akron, and the former Ohio Public Utilities Commissioner, the head of the commission. Both were indicted today on federal bribery charges. So we'll have to deal with that next week. But this was, as I say, I never feel right turning down a discussion of medical care. So there you go. Justin, and then we're done. Anybody else want to jump in? It's 4:07. We try to finish by 4:20 so everybody can go out and toke up. So Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is to put a capstone on all of what we've been talking about, that the whole system is built on private, right? Privatization, if at all possible. So Medicare Disadvantage is an idea of supposedly lowering the costs by allowing private people to compete. And it is proven to be so bad that it is about to be smashed through a lot of hearings and such. I can get all the details from someone who deals with millions of patient records and the 5,000 variables a month that change in terms of actually determining the best patient outcomes. But something from him that really matters for all of us is that the way you collapse something of public value is by saying it's incompetent. And the way you say it's incompetent is to underfund it. So Medicare really is not paying what it should. And that's one of the main reasons that doctors aren't taking it. And so, you know, we can lie and say, oh, it's because the system is bad. No, it's because the system isn't actually treated the way it should be. But the next layer of all of this comes down to that the not reforming it, not doing the Medicare for all, right? We're saying instead, oh, let's just create all of these other programs, all the way to the level of, hey, during the pandemic, we'll go ahead and shut down all these facilities, but we'll still keep charging people premiums. And so the insurance companies made hand over fist, as Mike said, not providing care at all. It really is a scam through and through. And what really is necessary is for the people to wise up, get to their legislators and say, yes, single payer actually is cheaper with better outcomes.
Thank you. Absolutely correct. Wendy, you want go ahead, and then we're going to kind of wrap.
Thank you. Yeah.
An amazing session. You know, whenever somebody cancels on us, we wind up having a great time. So anyway, Wendy, go ahead, please.
Yeah, it's hard not to get together and not have a great time for sure. And Dr. Nancy, thank you so much for your time and all your presentation. You're always so informative, and I've learned a lot from you over the last couple of years, really, of all that you've shared with us. So thank you for your work. I had one quick announcement before we cut, but I wanted to say a quick word about just a brief article that, if you guys remember my friend Guido, who climbed to the top, he shut down the Frederick Douglass bridge when Dobbs came down. Well, he sent me an article the other day. There were, since the Dobbs decision in 2002, in the states that have total abortion bans, there have been 64,000 pregnancies of raped women. And when I was doing my petitions, one of the sound bites that I kept hearing that from people, especially older white men, they're like, oh, the number of women that get pregnant from rapes is like, again, it's like less than 1%. And I'd keep hearing the same thing. And now there's this new study that 64,000 pregnancies just in the states with total abortion bans in the last 2 years. And I just wanted to give a quick update on that, just the Florida aspect of abortions. I just feel like it ties in with healthcare. Last week, the Supreme Court, the Florida Supreme Court, heard the arguments for whether or not our petition is going to be able to be on the ballot. So we're going to find out more. And there was a bill that just, I think it was passed, that would make that if, say, the abortion, we do get the right to abortion in Florida. There's a bill on the table now, and several, but one of them, they're backdoor bans, where if a father gets someone pregnant and she has an abortion, then the father could then sue the abortion provider. So I wanted to bring that up. And there was another thing with like homeless camps and all kinds of things, but I just wanted to bring up the abortion update. And I did just want to quickly say about the Assange X Day is coming up in a week and a half. And if anybody is interested in writing postcards to all of the representatives in Congress, maybe having a party, get 400 postcards they send with the addresses and stamps and postage, it's all covered. I'll put my email in the chat, wendyled@gmail.com. And if anybody's interested in writing postcards for Julian or doing anything for X Day, please reach out to me and make it happen. Free Assange. And thank you so much again.
Thank you. Next week, we're going to go back to election protection issues. We're going to be trying to issue a guidebook for grassroots organizing for the coming election. And in 2 weeks, we're going to have a major session on just election protection issues with a national focus. So this was an amazing session. After all, we want to thank Jerry ASHTON, Nancy Naparco, Camilla, so many people with Dave Saltman, MYLA, with so many great contributions to make to this. MYLA, did you want to jump in real quick?
I would. I'd like to let people know who are on the Zoom that I posted a link to an interview that I had on Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman the day after the waste isolation pilot plant opened. I had been trying for months to get on Democracy Now! I was working with one of her producers, and unfortunately, it wasn't until the New York Times had a above the fold headline article about the dump opening that I finally got on. We had really been hoping that maybe we could drum up some opposition before it opened and get some help, because in those days, we didn't have a lot of internet access, and it was really, we were pretty isolated in New Mexico. We finally got national exposure, unfortunately, once the dump opened. But I was on Democracy Now! I've got a link in the chat for the interview. That was before Democracy Now! Actually went to video. It was just audio at that time. And I was on with the great Arjun Makhijani, who I had to actually insist on getting a word in edgewise, because Arjun Makhijani, brilliant man, could have been the only person to actually be in that interview, but I insisted and I got a few words in. So I'm really hoping that people will tune in next week and we can have a fuller discussion about that dump, for the first underground dump for nuclear waste in the world at that point, and I think still. And that's in southern New Mexico near the Carlsbad National Caverns. And I'd love to talk about it more next week.
Okay, very good. And we also want to emphasize, I am posting the early outline of the guidebook we're going to do on election protection for 2024. And Ray McClendon and Andrea Miller will be joining us with Camilla and John Steiner and many others to put this thing together. And we will going to go forward with a national. This is going to be our focus for the year, is to really bring a higher turnout with a protected election, which is the only reason that Trump is not in the White House, is we did protect the 2020 election. We're obviously going to have to protect the 24 election as if knowing that our life depends on it. And we will dispense with further discussions of professional football, except to again hope that Taylor Swift really brings out the vote. It will be a very great thing. One of the few really positive outcomes of a national attention to professional football. How she turned up with a boyfriend on the team that wins the Super Bowl. That's what's called karma, and we're happy it happened. Okay, someone else. MYLA, did you want one more word here?
Yeah, just one more thing. Our esteemed colleague Mike Hirsch asked me to remind people about our YouTube channel. Everything here that you've heard and seen is on YouTube, and we really need people to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's I don't have the link handy, but it's listed under Green Grassroots. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Wendy, do you know?
Okay. I don't. Mike, Steve Cruz is not with us. Wendy?
Yeah, I wasn't prepared. I just saw the message from Mike, and we really want to get more people to subscribe. And you can listen to this and watch this entire 2+ hours on YouTube and share it and subscribe to the channel and help us reach more people, please.
And
we are going to spend a lot of this. Yes, Steve, Mike?
Slug, I'm hoping that as Taylor Swift tells people to vote, that all the MAGA people who hate her will do the opposite of what she tells people to do. So it might be a double-edged victory for us.
Well, all we have to do is show them her performance with Mick Jagger, and they'll all have a heart attack, and they won't be able to go to the polls. So there you go. This was a wonderful session. I want to thank Jerry Ashton also. He will be back with us. Wendy and Mike, thanks for sustaining us. Dr. Ruth, Nancy, Dave Saltman. Wendy, go ahead. Did you want to say something,
I was just going to say, yeah, it's the Green Grassroots Election Protection channel on YouTube. So Green Grassroots Election Protection. And please subscribe. We could use more subscribers. And if anybody, like whenever we're on this call, if anybody could also click, so we just get more views up, because the more views we have, the more it goes into other algorithms, and we can expand our reach to anyone that's on YouTube that's just happened to be watching, and spread the love, right? So thanks for bringing that up, guys. Green Grassroots Election Protection on YouTube.
And everybody who's listening on radio will be able to see all of Dr. Nancy's excellent slides. And then we have other presenters who have visual components. So you're only getting half of the fun if you're listening on the radio. So please check us out on the YouTube channel. Wendy, could you give that again, just in case people weren't paying attention the first time?
Sure. It's Green Grassroots Election Protection on YouTube. And we're also at grassrootsep.org. So Green Grassroots Election Protection on YouTube and grassrootsep.org for archives. Thank you all so much. We love you.
Love you too. Remember, it's 4:20 now, so I'm going to go jump in the ocean behind me. And MYLA are on our radio show, kpfk.org, Wednesday night at 5 p.m. if you want to listen in, kpfk.org. And again, if you're looking for a job and you can run an election, get that that job description and sign up. We can sure use you. All right, everybody. Mike, did you want to say goodbye?
Absolutely. When you go to the YouTube, click on that thumbs up to give it a like, comment on how much you enjoy it, and please share it with all of your friends, because we got to get the word out. These are some very important discussions that we have. And the more people who hear about it, the better it is for all of us. Thank you, Sluggo. Thank you, Dr. Nancy. Thank you, Wendy and MYLA. Thank you, everybody who participated and contributed. This is one of the most engaging, involving, inclusive 2 hours a week that you'll get anywhere. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, for listening, and for supporting this GREEP Zoom. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. See you next week. Take care.